Hey there, it's Diane Forster, and welcome to I Have Today, the show that talks about the art of intentional living. And each week on this show, we bring on amazing guests and talk about topics that are relevant to your life, where we inspire, empower, and educate you through life's transitions. And today, I am so super excited about my guest, James Robilotta. Hey, James, how are you?
What's up, Diane? So excited to be with you. And look at you. You are indeed the pot of gold at the end of that rainbow above your head.
Yeah, all right. Well, if you guys are listening to this on the podcast, yeah, I'm sitting here and I've got a picture behind me that's two mountains, and above it is this gorgeous rainbow. So always inviting in the pot of gold and the luck, right? All right. Well, today we are going to be talking about imperfectly perfect, that you are imperfectly imperfect. And I love when I share with you a little bit about James, who he is, what he does, and the work that he's doing, and tie that into what we're doing. There's such symmetry and alignment, and I wanted to have you on because, first of all, you're a fascinating guy and you're doing amazing work in this world. And I always want to be surrounded by and with people who are serving and using their life in a really great way. And you are clearly doing that. So the theme of the show is imperfectly perfect, which is part of the name of your book. Your book is called Leading Imperfectly. So we do also an intention statement. We always have an intention statement. And the reason for this is for you, the audience listening to this or watching this, is that affirmation, that intention statement, say it all week long. Let it really anchor in, because the more you affirm things in your life, the more you are capable and able to really reprogram that subconscious mind and actually take on what it is you're saying. So I'm really big on language on this show, and that our words matter so much. So the intention statement is, I have today to be perfectly imperfect, because you do, and because you are. And let's talk about that. Let's talk about perfectionism and accepting yourself as the perfect being that you are as we get into the show. All right. But before I do that, I want to read your bio. All right. So James Robilotta is an author, professional speaker, personal coach, host, and entrepreneur. His first book, Leading Imperfectly, The Value of Being Authentic for Leaders, Professionals, and Human Beings, is available wherever people can buy books. He also speaks internationally to willing and unwilling attendees about authentic leadership and promoting memorability. I love that. His clients include American Express, General Electric, Yale University, The Ohio State University, and many others. As a speaker, he is doing the two things he loves the most: making people think and making people laugh. His thought-provoking talks are infused with self-awareness and comedy, stemming from his background as a trained stand-up and improv comedian. We're definitely going to talk about that. He has a brand new podcast called Diner Talks with James, where he seeks to replicate the deep and often hysterical conversations that happen between friends over a plate of pancakes at a diner late at night. James is an expert question asker and conversationalist, so it feels like you're right in the diner booth with him and his guests, who range from actors, CEOs, to thought leaders, to random fascinating people. Find it on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. Lastly, James is also a personal coach. He loves helping people get out of their own way to live the lives they deserve and be the leaders they are capable of becoming. His clientele ranges from CEOs to college students. If you'd like to know more info about James' speaking events and coaching, feel free to visit him at jamestrobo.com. And we'll have more information about that at the end of the show. Well, all righty. Wow. What a bio.
Diane, it is always delightfully awkward to have your bio read to you.
I know. Well, you know what? You got to own it. You've got to own it. You're doing it. You're out there, and you've got fantastic energy. Okay. So where should we start? How about your story? How about your story about how you came to be doing what you're doing right now in the world?
Yeah.
Let's start there.
I love it. I love it. So I'm born and raised in New York, proud New Yorker over here. Watch your mouth.
Me
And
too.
there you go. I
Me
love it.
too.
Where in New York are you from?
I was born in Brooklyn and I grew up on Long Island in a town called Deer Park. Do you
I
know
have been
Deer
in,
Park?
I've been to Deer Park many a time. I also grew up in Suffolk County in a town called Sayville. And so just a little
Ah,
further out from Deer Park.
awesome.
I love it. And I just moved from Brooklyn, actually. So big fan. That's awesome. That's beautiful. So, yeah. So, growing up on Long Island and being by the water, I always thought I wanted to be a marine biologist. And so I actually wound up going to school for it. And around my junior year, I would realize I was putting too many jokes in my scientific papers. My teachers were like, you know what, James, this may not be for you. I was like, you know what, I think you're right. And but what I loved was the interaction that I was getting and the leadership skills that I was building on that campus. And so I decided to work in education, namely in higher education. And so I did that for quite some time. I love working with college students because I think in high school you learn who you are, and in college you learn why you are who you are. And that's a powerful time to work with somebody when they're asking themselves the question of, why does this matter to me? Why do I want to do that? Why do I think that? And so I love that. And then worked with college students for a while and went to a bunch of conferences and had the opportunity to present some programs. And somebody came up to me after one of my leadership talks and just said, "Hey, this may be a rude question, but how much do you charge?" And I said, "I don't know who you're talking to right now." But I
Yeah.
realized that maybe I
Wow.
have something. And so that's when I started getting into speaking. And it was around that time that I also had a supervisor that was what I would call a reverse role model. We know role
Mm.
models, but there's also people who teach us how not to do things, and that's where I really learned the power of authenticity and vulnerability, and where I wanted to make that my work because I saw the impact that she had on individuals not being those things, and I
Mm.
realized how critical it was. So that's how we got here.
Wow. Okay, I've never heard that reverse role model. Yeah. And
You probably have
how
some
how
reverse role models
fascinating.
as well.
What?
I said, I'm sure you
Oh,
probably have some reverse role models as well.
oh yeah, I've had a few. Still have a few. That's good that you took that and got clarity from that about how you wanted to show up, how you wanted to be in the world. And so, okay, all right. So tell me about your book, Leading Imperfectly. I, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, it's called Leading
when did
Imperfectly.
the book come out?
Yeah, the book came out about 5 years ago. Sorry, I'm so excited. I just started talking. Also, I'm a white male, so I like cutting people off. And
Oh
but
my gosh, you're so fun.
but yeah, my book came out about 5 years ago, and it's about the role that authenticity and vulnerability need to play in leadership. In my opinion, it's kind of this idea that we as humans can't learn things from people who are perfect. We can only learn things from people who are imperfect. So how are we leading with our stories and not leading with how we think we're supposed to lead?
I could not agree with that more. And I will tell you that is so important in my world and my work too. And just let me share this little nugget. I don't know if you know this about me, but I was really wrote my book and am an open book about my story and my struggle and my journey and what happened to me and led to a suicide attempt and how I, pulled myself out and back and became what I'm doing today. And when I'm out speaking or doing, hosting my show or coaching or doing webinars or summits or whatever, it's always the thing that I lead with because it instantly lets people know, okay, she's real. She's had struggles. We all have struggles. And then they can relate to me and they instantly builds that rapport. And I totally agree that you can tell when someone is being authentic or inauthentic. It comes through. And it's so much more valuable
Mm,
to let people see all the sides of you, your struggles as well as your successes. And leaders need to do that because they're already in that position of authority and credibility. And I've had experiences in my life with bosses and such where you're afraid you're literally afraid to really step up, ask questions, suggest ideas that could potentially really help a company or an organization
Yeah.
because of the way the leader is showing up in that setting, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. Right. I mean, a lot of times as leaders, we don't think about what we are role modeling, even when we're not trying to role model something, right? Just the way
Hmm.
that we exist. And there's so much power in relatability, right? Like that, when we can see ourselves in someone else, we believe that we can. But if we have a leader who is trying to be perfect, and it's even in relationships, right? When you have a friend who's trying to be perfect, when you have a partner who's trying to be perfect, right? Like you just feel like you have to hold yourself to these higher standards, and then we start to beat ourselves up because we don't think we're enough, and it's just unhealthy. But if we can approach it from, I mean, even just the courage, and I know you've shared your story before on here, but just your courage to share it again is really powerful. You give the gift to others to let them know that, hey, I can talk about mental health in this space. I can talk about suicide in this space. And I mean, what a gift to give to individuals, as opposed to them having to feel like they have to walk around like this big piece of them is something they're not allowed to talk about.
Yes, absolutely. I was on the phone with a woman this morning, a first time conversation, and I just said, hi, so and so, it's Diane Forster. And she goes, oh my God, superstar Diane Forster. And I said, you are definitely not talking about me. Like, I am not, don't,
Yeah.
and there's a little bit of like, ooh, when I hear that, of course, when you put yourself out there as a public figure, there's there's going to be a little bit of that, but I don't resonate with that, at,
Mhm.
at least not yet. I don't know that I ever will. I still feel like I'm just me, just doing me each and every day. And all right, so let's talk about this from a leadership perspective.
Okay.
Okay, what advice? And I'm a leader too, because I want to hear from you, but I also want all the other leaders out there, all the other people out there in leadership roles, to hear some tips or advice from you on how to do it, how to show it more with more vulnerability and more authenticity.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's hard, right? Especially when there are written and unwritten expectations of individuals, and when there's a climate at the office that breathes one thing, but you breathe another. It's really
Mhm.
hard to just be like, when am I allowed to show up? Are people going to judge me? Am I going to get fired, or am I going to look, like how are people going to receive what I'd like to give them? But I think it's a risk worth taking, because it opens the door for connection, right? I think, story, when we know about people's story leads to trust, and trust leads to loyalty. If we know that somebody cares about our
Mhm.
story, we are more likely to trust them, let them trust us, that kind of stuff. And so when it comes to a lot of stuff in leadership, we all know the phrase fake it till you make it. But let's be honest,
Right.
Diane, if all you ever do is fake it, you never really make it, right? And so at some point in time, we have to realize that where we are right now in this moment, we are enough. And that's
Right.
hard, right? I know for myself, I beat myself up in a lot of ways. I'm like, James, you're not funny enough. You're not cool enough. You're not smart enough. You're not hot enough, rich enough, successful enough. You don't have enough followers. You don't have enough people listening to your podcast. You don't have, like, and I tell myself all these stories, but those stories keep me from joy. And they keep me from authentically showing up in the spaces that I have the opportunity to show up, because I think I need to be someone else in order for people to respect me, want to hang out with me, want to, when I was in the dating game, wanting to date me, right? And so one of the biggest things that we can do, and this is hard, but one of the biggest things that we can do is say to ourselves, you know what? Am I done with this thing of like growth? Am I done trying to get better? Am I done with self-improvement? No, but I have done some work. And so let me acknowledge the work that I have done. It's kind of like we're all climbing a mountain, but none of us ever turn around to look how far we have climbed. We just keep looking forward and be like, oh God, I got so much more, right? But if we just stopped for a second and turned around and be like, oh shoot, I've made progress. And so I think that's one of the biggest things that individuals can really try to do is recognize that by sharing, by realizing that they are enough, they will start to lead more like themselves. They will exist in that marriage more like themselves. They will parent more like themselves. They were right. Like it bleeds into so many other areas.
Yes, that is well said. I really like that a lot. And you're right. We do not stop. Most people do not stop often enough and acknowledge and celebrate all those little milestones, how far you have come. You know, whatever that looks like for you. You might have, you might not have all the followers. Let's just use that as an example. You thought you would have at this point, right? But does that matter? Because if you've changed one life, you've had an impact on somebody and changed the trajectory of their life. You're still out there serving, and we have to let go of that. And I spent many years in sales, working for ABC and in the television sales industry in general. And it was always, you were only as good as your last order. You literally celebrated that moment right then and there. And then it was like, okay, what's next? Yeah. And think about what that breeds in people. Think about how fast everything moves today, in this technology world that we live in this social media world and information world and connected world, that there's so much going on. How could you possibly keep up with it? Like there's all this subconscious stuff going on in our minds saying, chasing that rainbow, chasing that rainbow, chasing that rainbow. And we just have to stop and go like, enough. Like you said, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I am perfectly imperfect right here where I am.
Yes.
I am a work of art and a work in progress at the same time. And I am enough. I absolutely am enough. Because truly, at the end of the day, whose opinion of it does it matter most anyway? Your own opinion matters most. So, all right. That was great. Really good.
It's tough because sometimes the loudest voice in our brain isn't the cheerleader, it's the critic. And so, and that's, it's tough to silence the inner critic. A friend of mine, her name is Stacy Nato. She talks about having to fact check her inner critic. And I thought that was a really cool way that she put that we need to fact check our inner critics. And so, yeah, but it's work worth doing, like you said.
It is. And 70% of our thoughts are negative every day anyway. So they're going to, statistics are and odds are in their favor. So it's having the awareness and shifting that around and really, really honoring yourself every single day and being vulnerable and showing up as in authenticity, as the authentic version and representation of yourself. So, all right, I want to talk about your clients, American Express, General Electric, Yale University, Ohio State University. So when you're there, I assume you're speaking there or training there. Is that what you're doing there?
Yes, yeah, exactly.
So what is the, what is the biggest objective for you to get out of that experience? Because what are they coming there to hear you speak? I know they're hearing you speak about your book, but I want to get deeper into that. Like, what do they walk away with after hearing you present?
So I think it always depends on the client because, I'm available to customize anything for your company's needs. But still, it depends on the client. But for the most part, like you said, it is truly about the book. And it is a lot of times it's trying to shift the thing that they're walking away is shifting the way we talk to each other. And how are we communicating with each other as fellow human beings? And that is true in so many other ways. And I think a lot of times people lead through imposter syndrome, and they lead through this idea of, again, like we mentioned before, they're not good enough. So let me try to pretend to be somebody else who I'm not, who they would probably consider a quintessential leader. And so when I come in and talk to organizations, it's a lot of this idea of we need to meet individuals where they're at. We need to have human to human conversations. And so, one of the things I talk to a lot of companies about is feedback. How are we having growth conversations? And a lot of people hate those difficult conversations because they're uncomfortable and they're weird. So we only put them one time a year, during an annual review or something like that.
Yeah.
But those conversations, if we can get to a more authentic place where someone knows that we genuinely care about them, their story, and their path that they are on, when we can tell when someone cares about us in that way. And when they do care about us in that way that we listen to their feedback is different. The way we take it to heart, the way we say, oh, maybe I'm not going to get as defensive right now because you care about me. And I like the way that you lead, and I trust the way that you lead. And so therefore, since you care about me and I respect you as a leader, the way that we can now have growth conversations changes, because it shifts from you're doing everything wrong to you can do some things better. And that's a big deal, right? You're not getting fired. I trust you. I like you. We shift the conversation from leading with love to from leading with fear to leading with love. And that's a lot of what we're trying to get out of those moments, is trying to get individuals to think about, do you lead with fear or do you lead with love? And in turn, what does the team look like around you? Do they look scared? Do they look like they're on eggshells? Are they just waiting for the other shoe to drop? Or are they approaching you when they're going through things in work and outside of work? Do they see you as someone who can be helpful to him, that's not going to just put them down for having a question? What is the environment that you are creating? And so that's a lot of what I discuss with those companies.
I really love that. I love growth conversations, because I worked 32 years and had those annual, assessments and reviews. And, for the most part, I'm a overachiever and a workaholic. And, there, of course, were areas of improvement, which I was always good with. But I know that feeling, even being an overachiever, even being someone who tried to get hired multiple times, but like bosses kept trying to hire me back. So that was, what a feeling that is. Like they really valued me. I would still have that imposter syndrome, and I'd still have that little thing like I could get fired. I don't think anybody is immune from that. And it's such a horrible way to operate. And I love the growth conversations, because we are all, we're all expanding and we're all growing. And if we're not, we're stagnant and we're dying, right? So we should be growing. And so these are growth conversations for growth opportunities, which has a much nicer ring to it than your annual review and assessment.
Sit down and get some feedback.
Right. Yeah.
And I agree. Yes. I don't, we all should not be immune to that, but there are some individuals who think that they are immune to that. And they're unfortunate outliers. Right. There's some people that's like, you think you're immune to this when you're the exact person that needs to be listening right now.
Yeah. Yes. You can tell. Well, they're deflecting, they don't want to acknowledge. Right. Wow. Okay. All right. Let's talk about your comedy background. I mean, you are a funny guy. I'm having a great conversation with you. So, and I love how you weave that in, because it should be fun. And then I want to talk about your podcast. So tell the comedy first.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, life's too serious not to laugh at it, right? And so, yes. Comedy has been a big part of my life. I started doing stand-up back in 2004 4-ish. And then I fell in love with improv comedy. And that's kind of where that's the area of comedy that I live in right now. Self-esteem wise, it's also a safer place to live. Stand-up comedy, there's no high like a stand-up high. There's no low like a stand-up low. And
Wow.
whereas improv is a team-based sport. And so, you're kind of up there and you're creating together and you have no idea what you're going to say or what's going to happen, but you got each other's backs. And so it was a really cool way for me to build community when I moved back to New York after college, also into the city, because since it's a community-based activity and a team-based activity, it was really awesome. And so now it gets woven into everything that I do. I mean, my whole speaking style is I get you laughing and then I like sucker punch you in the feels, right? Like I sneak in something because when we laugh, our walls come down. And therefore, it makes us more open and susceptible to things getting in. And so I found it to be an effective teaching style for sure. And so, yeah, that's kind of my whole, that's my game.
I love that. And that makes you a standout for sure. That's great. All right. Tell me about your new podcast, Diner Talks with James.
That's it. Yeah, for sure. We're talking about a podcast on a podcast. It's podcast inception. And
it is.
I love it. Yeah, it just came out. It just came out. I think we're 10 episodes in. And so super excited about it. And in my opinion, the best conversations we have in our lives all occur late at night with the friends that we never want to leave over food we probably shouldn't be eating. And right, like I just love those moments. And whether they're guilty pleasure diner runs right on Long Island, we know all about our diners over here, right? Right. Whatever your favorite late night move is from wherever you are in the country or internationally. I just love those moments because whether it's because we're a little bit too tired or whether it's because we're just around people that we trust and love, the conversations always get a little deeper.
Maybe a little buzz.
Maybe a little buzz, right? Yeah, absolutely, right? Absolutely. Yeah. But sometimes those conversations get a little deeper. They're always hysterical, but there's also those moments where all of a sudden you're having these deep conversations and they're beautiful. And so I'm trying to recreate those moments via Diner Talks. So the goal is eventually to have it. The dream is to get it picked up by some sort of production company and actually shoot it in diners one day.
That's my next question.
Yeah. That's the goal for it. So, yeah.
Yeah, that is awesome. That is great. I see it. I'm intuitive. I totally see it happening for you. What a great concept. Good for you.
And as someone who worked in TV and has eaten a lot of diners, the fact that you see it means a lot.
I don't really eat in diners anymore. Rarely. But I do love a good diner burger and a good diner breakfast. So fun. So fun. All right. So let me ask you a question, James. I ask all my guests this question. How do you live the I have today way, which is intentionally in the present moment with passion and purpose?
Yeah. I live my life based on what I want to be said in my eulogy. And my eulogy, I don't want to have people scrambling for stories and scrambling for memories. And so therefore I need to live a life that is filled with cool stories. And so whatever that means, like maybe that means that, if I'm traveling alone, that, I'm going to belly up to the bar or I'm going to sit at the bar and have a conversation with the bartender while I'm eating instead of like getting some table in the back corner. Let me put myself in places where I can have more cool conversations with random individuals because we have something to learn from everybody. And so a lot of it is that it's giving everyone just a little bit more time than potentially they expected. And not in an awkward way, like, is this guy still here? But like in a way where it's like, I'm not just going to ask you, how are you? And then hope that you say good, fine, tired, busy, and then keep it moving, right? I'm going to ask a follow-up question and I'm going to learn a little bit more about your life because one of the greatest gifts that we can give someone is time. And it's where we bond, it's where we learn. And so a lot of what I do is around that notion, is giving individuals a little bit more time because then You never know what comes out of it. Some of the best stories have come out of those conversations, or even opportunities have come out of those conversations just because you gave someone a little bit more time. So that's what I do.
That is beautiful. That is beautiful. All right, I want to highlight some of the things you shared today because you dropped a lot of great nugget bombs. You said that reverse role model, the reverse role model really changed your life and affected you, and how what you did not want to be. That it's really in leadership, it's about authenticity and vulnerability.
Mhm.
That how are we having growth conversations much more effective? I love that so much. And you're about shifting the way that we talk to each other. And the last thing you said that I love, and I wrote this down, that you live the I have today way, and how you do that is because you live your life like it's your eulogy and what people are going to be saying about you at your eulogy. And it is all about people and connection, right? That's why we're in this human experience in the first place, is to really deeply connect. And it's a challenging world we're living in for many reasons, besides the obvious reasons, but more and more, as connected as we are, there's so much disconnection. So keeping it real, keeping it vulnerable, keeping it authentic, keeping it imperfectly perfect or perfectly imperfect, however you want to say it, is really the way to lead in your life and in love and in everything that you do. And you're a shining example of that, James. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Diane, so
Awesome.
special kicking it with you. What a beautiful recap. And I mean, what you said was beautiful there at the end. And I agree with you wholeheartly. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, well, you are so welcome. Okay, so again, to follow James's website is James T. Robo. So it's jamestrobo.com. Make sure you subscribe to his new podcast called Diner Talks with James. Follow him on social media, and keep an eye out for him, because he's up to amazing stuff in this world. And don't forget, our theme for the show was Imperfectly Perfect. Our intention statement was, I have today to be perfectly imperfect. And I want to share a quick little gift with you as well. You know, a lot of what I said is we do focus on language a lot here at I Have Today, and I know people struggle a lot. So I have a gift for you that is called 8 affirmations. The number 8 and the word affirmations. And these are 8 powerful affirmations, one very intentional affirmation for the 8 key areas of your life. And it's my free gift to you. So if you want to start attracting more love and money and success and happiness in your life, go to 8affirmations.com and get the free download there. So thank you so much for being here, James. It's truly been a pleasure. And we will definitely stay connected, because I love what you're up to. And we'll see you next time at I Have Today. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.